So welcome to Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa's 2022 theme, Taking a Deep Dive. This is a joint theme with Unity Kitchener, and this is a powerful year of creating our lives as we arise from the challenges of the past 2 years. We are entering a new world, which is known as a Kali Yuga, meaning new life, and also it is known as the Golden Age. And we will benefit from practicing and fine-tuning our spiritual tools. So since January, we've been diving deeper into single topics over 3 weeks to more fully integrate our spiritual theory. And this month is certainly no exception. And I am so pleased to celebrate this month's exploration. Our wisdom teaching for this week is called The Hero's Journey, Part 1, Soul Force Awakening. And you remember from January that Reverend Dr. Jane Simmons was speaking to us of the mystical journey of our life. And this week, she will dive into the aspect of the hero's journey referred to as the calling. And she'll explore the nature of what the Jungian analyst James Hollis refers to as the summons of the soul. And she asks, are you being called to a greater expression of who you are? And I ask, will you respond to the call? And will you notice that you have been called? So Reverend Jane is an ordained minister and educator who holds a doctoral degree in theology from Hollis University. Since her ordination in 1999, Jane has ministered in 4 Unity churches in Canada and the United States, as well as serving as a teen ministry coordinator for Unity Worldwide Ministries and adjunct faculty for Unity Worldwide Spiritual Institute. She has a passion for heart-centered personal and cultural transformation and is committed to helping bring forth a kinder, more compassionate world. She is Unity's 2020 recipient of the Light of God Expressing Award. And a student and teacher of mysticism, she is a co-founder of Quantum Living and the co-creator of the Quantum Process, a shadow work system that focuses on healing and integration of both the shadow and what she calls as our gifts, our golden shadow, which can be found at www.theartofquantumliving.com. And one interesting tidbit, a personal tidbit I learned this morning is Reverend Jane also has a black belt. So we have a powerful woman here speaking to us today. So let's extend a warm USCO, Unity Kitchener, and Halton Peel welcome to Reverend Dr. Jane Simmons. And Reverend James will follow her talk with a meditation.
Well, thank you, Linda. And I want to say how wonderful it is to be with you all. I'm always so inspired and grateful when I get to be with my Canadian friends. And you inspire me. And I'm just delighted to be invited and to be a part of it. And the black belt was from 1997. So I'm afraid it's not current, very current, but yes, I did get my black belt at one time in my life. And so that's, we're all working on our black belts in awakening, I believe. So there you go. So as you've heard, back in January, I was speaking on the heroic journey that we are all traveling. And today we're beginning this 3-week series, and we're delving deeper into each aspect of that, namely the call, then the wandering in the wilderness, and then culminating in the resurrecting power of the Easter story as we return from that wandering time, bearing gifts that we have mined throughout those wilderness experiences that come forth. So if you remember, the heroic journey is shown in so many fairy tales and legends, and it's this mythology that shows up, the fairy tales, legends, fables, but also current stories. If you look at Star Wars and the Hobbit, all those things, they they are showing us the spiritual journey. It's really mirroring something for us to watch. And, Albert Einstein here, he really valued the power of these tales, saying you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. You want them to be very intelligent, read them more. So these tales contain gold for us as we mine them for the value that they bring us. So, so as we talk about the call, or if you'll remember, so pardon me for 1 second. My computer seems to be skipping. There we go. As you heard, the Jungian analyst James Hollis calls it the summons of the soul. And this is what sets us on this path of discovery. And so this summons of the soul is delivered through the awakening of soul force. And okay, there we go, soul force. Now, I first came across this this term of soul force when I was reading about Martin Luther King and how he used what he called soul force. And I was intrigued to discover that he found this out with his studies on Mahatma Gandhi and his work. And I have to say, both of these men are personal heroes of mine. And if you think about what they did, they brought forth a change, but they also showed an ability to go the distance in that work. It wasn't just an eruption of something and then going away. Both of them really stayed the course and did what they had to do in order to bring forth this change, this transformation. And I felt like I had unearthed an important clue as to what sustained their journeys, what launched their journey, but also what sustained the journey, and that is soul force. And so Gandhi thought of soul force as the powerhouse behind nonviolent action, which is love. So he called that soul force. Dr. King recognized the power of this force of love. He saw that it could help to lift the hearts of those who were engaging in nonviolent work with hope, with possibility, with connection, with compassion. All these things can arise from this force. And so this power is the key for us on our transformative path. It's the rocket fuel that motivates us to suit up, to set out, to show up on this journey. It's the calling forth of something greater. And this awakening is spirit waking up to itself within us. So think about that. It's not necessarily us awakening to who we really are. It is that. But if you can get this sense that within us there is this power that is there now, and it might be slumbering at the moment, but it's an awakening of spirit to itself within us. I love how the teacher Adia Shante says it. Universal spirit consciousness wakes up to itself. Rather than me waking up, what we are wakes up from the me, the limited self that we currently kind of believe ourselves to be. Universal presence, when you think about it, is exactly that. It's a presence that is universal. That means it's everywhere present. It's oneness, and it already lives within all of us. And it may be outside of our awareness, but nonetheless, it is the truth of who we are right now. And as we awaken to that truth, we awaken self-remembrance, waking up from the dream of being a separate self and really opening up to that truth of who we are. So this soul force comes as a calling forth of a remembrance of the deeper dimension within us. And the summons of the soul is telling us there's more. There's more to life. It can show up as a divine discontent, an ancient urging from within to arise, to grow into a greater expression of the authentic self that we have come here to be. And it shows up as a profound desire to become more, to actualize more of our innate potential, to wake up from the dream of separation, to go beyond the limited self that we have thought ourselves to be, and to live our lives in the conscious awareness of our oneness with God, our oneness with life, truly embodying spirit as we walk through our days, instead of kind of sleepwalking our way through and missing the majesty of this now moment, the majesty of every single moment. We can miss that when we're just kind of sleepwalking through and always wanting look outside ourselves for that satisfaction that we're looking for. We should be looking within. I read about an anonymous poem that was written on a subway wall that really opened my eyes to what happens when we stay asleep to who we are. And this is what the author wrote. First, I was dying to finish high school and college. Then I was dying to finish college and start working. Then I was dying to marry and have children. And then I was dying for my children to grow old enough for school so I could go back to work. Then I was dying to retire. And now I'm dying. And I realized I forgot to live. Pretty powerful words. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to wake up just in time to realize we forgot to live. So we want to work on that right now. So Dr. Hollis talks about the first and second halves of life. He does divide life in half, where at age 50, you magically enter the second half of your life. It's not about chronological age, but it's about universal time. It's about universal time and having this evolutionary impulse within us that shifts into a different way of doing our lives. And so he describes the shift as saying the first half of our life, well, loosely we can say this, we're building a healthy ego, we're taking on roles, we're taking on identities, we're establishing ourselves in our profession or raising a family or earning degrees, all those things. We're entering the labyrinth, we're walking in. The second half is when we transcend all of these roles or any labels that we've taken on as we look within and we ask the question, who am I beyond the labels? Who am I beyond the labels? And we're looking for a greater expression of who that is. We're heading out of the labyrinth now. And so, we may have spent a lot of our life becoming what the world calls successful. We might have a profitable business or lots of money or, the new house or new car, whatever it is, vacations. And then at somewhere along the line, discovering that it doesn't really give us what we want. It's not really it. Joseph Campbell points out it can really be a rude awakening when you discover maybe the ladder of success that we've been climbing has been against a different, the wrong wall. So sometimes I have to tell you, this call is not always a pleasant one. And if you think of these stories, there are many reluctant heroes in mythology. If you think about a hobbit leaving his home, leaving this comfortable life that's very safe and, setting out for dangerous parts unknown, it kind of gives you this feel of how it can be to be called out of our complacency, our comfort, our safety, all those things. And so something can happen in our life that can sort of propel this and not be very pleasant. Maybe we lose a job or or a loved one. Maybe there's illness or injury that visits our lives, a pandemic, a war, or just watching the nightly news can really affect us in this way. It can be a wake-up moment when we don't get dragged down with empathetic distress or compassion fatigue, which many of us have been experiencing in these really times where we're witnessing a lot of suffering. So all manner of unwelcome callings can show up at our door. And just suffice it to say that. But they all are beckoning us to step outside of our structure of knowing, our current limits of beliefs of who we are, and into an adventure of evolutionary growth and transformation. This internal journey of consciousness, we can think of it as a pilgrimage beyond our yesterday self. So feel how that feels. It's a pilgrimage beyond our yesterday self. And it aims to help us to transcend our embeddedness in a current belief system. If we're really embedded in a limited belief system, this calling can help us to step out of that. And as I said, so we're often very reluctant to do it. It doesn't feel like it's something we want. And yet there's this urging, this ancient urge that's calling us forth, and it needs to be responded to in some way. Greg Levoy in the book Callings points out that this summons is really a monologue and that it needs a response. You know, there's a calling and we need to answer it. He says this: our own unfolding requires that we be in constant dialogue, in fact, with whatever's calling us. So it entails listening to that voice, listening to the prompt, and then responding in some way. And so this journey begins with leaving that which is known to face and overcome something that seems maybe insurmountable to us. In the tales of old, we often heard about a fierce dragon, you know, that's causing havoc and needs to be transformed in some way. And that transformation can't happen by hiding from it or by running from it. And so our hero leaves the comforts of home to face the dragon. Now, what I want to say is that we all have our dragons. We all have our dragons. And they are internal dragons. They can show up as critical self-judgment, limiting beliefs, a sense of not enough, of I'm not good enough, or my life isn't good enough, or I don't have enough of what I need. And our conditioning, our self-defeating behaviors, all these things can be dragons that we are trying to overcome. And in the book, Transforming Your Dragons, Dr. Jose Stevens points out that mythic dragons are shapeshifters. You see, they have the ability to live on the land, in the air, they breathe fire, they can go under the sea. And so they have all those elements involved. And so these internal dragons can affect all the elements of our lives, our thoughts, the air, our emotions, the water, our bodies, our personalities, the land, and our motivation, our passion, our fire for life. All these things can be touched by these dragons of critical self-judgment, limiting beliefs, all those areas of our life. These dragons in mythology, they're ageless and they show up at any time. So in our lives, they can show up at any stage in our own development, and they're secretive, you see. They operate below our conscious awareness. And this is really important for us to get. That part of awakening is starting to see these unconscious things that have been running our lives. And, you know, we're talking here about the dark shadow, those parts of ourselves that we have pushed away, suppressed, abandoned in a sense, banished, you know, into the unconscious. And they're there. They're very secretive, but they don't go away when we do that. They actually become very formidable opponents for our evolutionary growth and transformation, especially when we're not conscious of them. And that's the key for us right here. That is the key. The work we do in the quantum living is to help us become conscious of those dragons and to work with them in a way that can help them to integrate into the truth of who we are. And how do we do that? How do we overcome this seemingly unbeatable adversary? Well, guess what? Not by battling it. It's not about that. But by doing what it's designed to help us do, wake up. Remember who we are at our deepest level, our essential nature. And here's the important thing. No dragon can withstand the power of presence. No dragon can withstand the power of presence. Dr. Stevens identifies our resources. He calls them weapons. I call them resources in dealing with these dragons as knowledge, you know, and we're talking here not about a passive conceptual knowledge. It's about an intense, active force of wisdom, truth, intuition, our intuitive understanding that comes, love, compassion, kindness, caring of the heart, and awareness. No dragon can withstand the power of presence and experience that we're having an actual embodied experience of it. And so contained within soul force are the gifts and the talents in potentiality, maybe latent. They may be latent, but they're there. And everything we need to overcome these dragons are within that calling forth the soul force. We can find what we need within ourselves. And it's in the journeying itself that they come to, they emerge into actualization. It's when we set out on this journey that we start to find out what we're made of. These gifts and talents start to come to the fore, the golden shadow. So using these tools, we can neutralize the dragon's vulnerable spots. What did I hear this morning? Mystical underbelly of the dragon. That's really what happens. And instead of slaying the dragons, guess what? We turn them into allies. The dragon becomes an ally, and they stop controlling our lives. This is the problem that we run into. It's such unconscious behavior that we don't even realize that our conditioning is controlling our lives. And when we make the unconscious conscious and work with it with love, it becomes our ally instead of opponent. Now, one of the issues we face with the awakening of soul force is that we can misread the desire for more, and we can try to answer it by reaching for another Oreo cookie. Do you know what I mean by this? We can take that urging and we can turn it into some sort of a craving of something. But we could also maybe have excessive shopping, trying to fill that gap, or excessive exercising or workaholism. We could turn to alcohol, substance abuse. In other words, addictive behavior can show up when we're trying to answer this call and misreading what it's calling us to. But I read recently something interesting, that addictive behavior is a misguided attempt to restore our true nature by replicating or mimicking some of the soul's attributes. So if you think of what the soul, our natural state of our soul, it's joyful, it's fun-filled, it's spontaneous, it's peace, it's order. All these things are our natural way of being of the soul. And when we are attempting to fill those gaps with addictive behavior, just think of it, a carb stupor is very peaceful, in a comatose kind of way. I don't know if you've ever kind of ate a whole bag of popcorn, that's mine, and then I just can't even move. We're trying to replicate the peace of the soul. And habitual ritualistic addictive behavior is very orderly. It's how we try to control our lives. Getting a buzz of some kind, it's fun. That's why we do it. Addiction to excitement. You think of adrenaline junkies, that we're looking for the wildness again of the soul, the excitement of it, the adventure of it. And maybe we're constantly starting a new relationship, this is a desire to try to recapture the passion of the soul, the fire of the soul. We're trying to get that. And so while these behaviors can kind of scratch the itch for the moment, they don't last. They never last. We get a new car, for a while we're joyfully riding high, and then the shine wears off and it no longer gives us what we are searching for, because obviously we're looking outside of ourselves, and it can only be found within. So this call to something more can lead us off the path if we're not mindful about it. And it's not that we can never have dessert again, or a glass of wine, or enjoy our job, or buy a new car, or have a happy relationship. It's just that we do it mindfully, and we notice if our motivation is trying to scratch an itch that's on the inside of our heart, and it can't be reached by outer toys. That itch is still there because it's calling forth something greater, something that moth and rust do not corrupt, something that can't be stolen from us, the pearl of great price. This evolutionary impulse is calling us to into being more of who we truly are. And we want to use that soul force to lead us away from the cookie jar and onto the meditation cushion, for instance. And I'm not trying to minimize here the pain of addiction or even suggest that it's an easy fix. Being caught in addictive cycles of behavior can be it can be hell on earth for us. The suffering that comes from that, we don't want to minimize that, or we don't want to try to use a form of maybe spiritual bypass in order to use as an antidote by any means. However, it's long been known that admitting our powerlessness over a situation and then surrendering to a higher power is a way that we can work with addictive behavior. And it turns out it's the same way that we can activate soul force in such a way that it can help to guide us through it. And so we have this resource that unconscious conditioned addictive behavior doesn't have, and that is awareness, self-awareness. The dragon can't rule our life when we call on the power of presence. When the pandemic hit, suddenly I was unable to visit my loved ones and my beloved grandchildren. I couldn't be with them for well over a year. And I was powerless to do anything about that. The border was closed. I wasn't able to go. And I have to tell you, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me. My heart was really breaking, and I was aching to see them. And of course, we were video chatting, and that was definitely helpful. But boy, I wanted hugs. I really missed being with them and so greatly. And that longing that I felt led me to a daily practice of doing a loving kindness meditation, and where I envisioned each grandchild one at a time. I rounded and folded each one in compassion, in support, in caring, in kindness. And as I did, I was moved beyond words. I felt a profound heart connection with each of my loved ones, one at a time. And then I did them all together. I brought the whole group together and just surrounded. That was soul force from my grandmother's heart in the form of longing for connection with my loved ones. And it was the powerhouse behind taking my meditation practice to a whole new intensity, Now, it didn't take the place of the hug, for sure. As soon as those restrictions were lifted, you better believe I was on the next plane and, got my time to my grandchild time. I was just ready for it. But what this did, it widened my capacity for becoming a beacon of love. I want you to really hear this, that it was exercising my compassion and kindness muscle. And I could feel that it was a greater intensity of being able to share that love. And the forced distance was the impetus for taking my heart's capacity to a greater level. It was a workable way for me to meet that need for connection, and helped me to do that exercising of my heart so that I could share it with the world. And you see how it brings something greater out of you when you admit you're powerless over the situation and turn to something greater. And doesn't our world need this greater capacity to love right now, really? So I knew I was powerless over my ability to travel. And it was really messing with my heart, And then I remembered to stop and to surrender the fight, surrender the resistance to source, to realize I'm powerless over this. I'm turning now to a deeper self. And as Toni Morrison writes, if you want to fly, you got to give up what's weighing you down. And so I had to really let go of the resistance, the fighting, the anger, the frustration, all those things. I felt them all. I needed to, but there came a time when I just thought, I have to give all this to Spirit and, show me what to do. And so this journey, this journey that we're on entails this. This is part of the heroic journey. We have to face our powerlessness over these outer circumstances and surrender to a greater self. and that's the source within. And once that happens, guess what happens? We gain a greater access to soul energy, and the universal life force can now provide an intelligent creativity, a greater degree of that was unavailable to us in that earlier state that I was in, for sure. So we just need to know we don't set out on this heroic journey alone. We never do. That which calls us forth contains the power to carry us. Let me say that again. That which calls us forth contains the power to carry us if we learn to turn to it, to allow it, to welcome it. And in this time of such cultural polarity and divisiveness, war, climate change, the need for soul force to awaken is urgent. I really feel the urgency of it. There's a beautiful Sufi saying that reads, God sleeps in the rock, dreams in the plant, stirs in the animal, and awakens in man, in humanity. Soul force is everywhere present. Everywhere present. It's surrounding and enfolding us right now. It is within every single heart. It's filling us with the beauty, the power, the generosity of spirit. That generosity is at our core. And when we allow it to come forth, when we exercise our love and kindness and compassion, muscles, we widen our capacity for it. So let me ask you this. What is calling you? This is the bottom line. We want to really listen to what is calling you. Are you feeling a joyful stirring of soul force awakening in you? How is your soul summoning you? Are there areas in your life where you are really feeling this divine discontent, this ancient urge that's, something more? How enlivened are you by your life right now? And so I want to invite you to be in these questions this week, to really start asking yourself those questions. Start journaling what the answers are for you. How is your soul summoning you into a greater expression of the truth of who you are already? And then to release it, to turn to that higher source and allow it to come forth and to give you what you need to set out on this journey, to set out past the comfort zone. You see, it's a big journey to get past that comfort zone to begin with. And then let the adventure begin. So next week, we will take a look at the next phase of that heroic journey, which is the wandering, and what happens next. We answer the call, and is that it? Or is there something more that we need to be mindful of? And how do we overcome the dragon? So what I want to say to you is, don't discount who you are and what you bring to this planet, because every single one of you, every single one of us is spirit in expression. We're all here to be the ones to make the difference in the world. How can you make a difference in your life right where you are right now? And just hold that question in your heart this week as you go through. And so I want to take a moment now to really center in to that knowingness of source energy. And so let's take a minute and settle into our seats. And just take a breath. And we hold in our hearts the beautiful words to the song of Daniel Nahmod. I'm being taken deeper than I've ever been before. So we take a breath. And we sink our awareness deep, deep within our bodies. So feel the soles of your feet. Notice how they feel. Turn your attention right down to that rooted, grounded spot of your body. Now move your attention upward through the body, scanning throughout, through your legs, through the trunk of your body, your shoulders, your arms and hands, and upward through the neck to the face, scalp, head. Notice any places of tension in your body, around the shoulders or the neck or the eyes, the jaw. Wherever it is, just consciously relax as we set aside any cares or worries, anything that's been on our minds or that's keeping us from being present. We just let it go, knowing we can pick it up later. For now, we want to really inhabit this moment. So we begin to focus on the breath, just following its rhythm in and out. Just imagine breathing right into your heart. Put your hand on your heart if you choose to help you to connect with that center. But as you imagine breathing into the heart space, bring into your mind someone that you deeply, deeply love. And let the thought of this person warm your heart. Now let that feeling of love and kindness bubble up from your heart and expand beyond your heart. Just imagine now that your body is being filled with this high vibration of love, appreciation, kindness. Notice how your body feels being bathed in this healing presence. Now imagine sending the love in your heart to that loved one. Feel your divine connection from heart to heart. As you send that love forth. And so we let that love emanate from within us. We become a center of divine love, an inlet and an outlet of spirit. And we surround our earth with loving kindness, compassion, caring. And we know the truth that each one of us is here to be the presence of love and peace on this planet. That as we share our hearts with the world, we come into alignment with the truth of who we are. We are love. And this is the true realization that comes from the heroic journey, that we are love in action. And the world rejoices as we share our gifts of love. And for this truth, we open our hearts even wider in gratitude for the opportunity to be spirit on this earth, to share these divine attributes with the world. Let's take one more breath. And we release and bring our attention back to this time and space. And we give thanks for the work that we can do, for the power of spirit, and for the awakening of soul force within every heart. And so it is. Amen.